think this might be the most convoluted anime I've ever watched. Certainly not as bad as Crisis on Infinite Earths, a show I can't even possibly fathom what the hell went on in the writer's room. So while Nighthead might not be as insanely idiotic as that show, it gets pretty close. So let me try and sum up this baffling plot. So there are two parallel Earths, a dystopian one that relies on technology, and one that's nice and great and just the bestest, while everyone's in harmony with nature. Anyway, two brothers from the nice world are sent to the dystopian one without any information whatsoever in order to save all the worthy people from that world as it's being destroyed by their own presence. Wait.
One day, his future self appeared and told him to never go back in time or he'd be stabbed to death. The younger Ramiro refused to believe him and stabbed him to death. He realised what a terrible thing he'd done, so he went back in time to warn his younger self, but got stabbed to death.
Essentially, all the people who truly believe in spiritual energy get to be reincarnated in the other world, leaving everyone else and the entire Earth to be destroyed.
Are we the baddies?
But then again, it's not reincarnation since there are alternate versions of people. But then it is. But it isn't. But it is. Now that's all a mess on its own without even bringing up the dystopian world the anime set in. So in 20 years, World War III happened and 2/3 of the world's population were killed. So now Japan has banned all religious, spiritual and fictional beliefs. Or at least that's what's being told to the remaining population, because what actually happened in 2023 was 2/3 of Earth's population, 5.2 billion to be exact, all travelled to a different dimension, leaving the non-believers behind. The memories concerning that event of those left were removed, so now they live in a sci-fi dystopia. Who the hell would ever orchestrate this whole thing?
故に地球の意志はこの世界を元の次元に残したまま次元移動したんだ。
So let me get this straight. The Earth is sentient, looks at humanity and decided to send all the people who believe in spiritual energy to an alternate Earth without their permission. As a result, that first Earth now has only unworthy people. Incidentally, I have no idea or not if that alternate Earth already had a population or not.
That just raises further questions!
Also, great use of Noah's Ark there, guys. Real subtle. Suppose that does raise the question of whether the animals are punished for not believing in spiritual energy. Not that I ever assumed the anime would ever dive deeper into this concept. I mean, there are tons of interesting philosophical questions and commentaries about whether humanity can be divided into good or evil, or redeemable and damned, but Nighthead doesn't even try to answer any of these queries. Simply put, no matter how kind you are, no matter how much society has forced you into terrible places, it's all a case of non-believers damned, believers saved. Specifically, believers of spiritual energy, as pious and creative people seem to have not been included in the mass event of 2023. Oh yeah, those left behind weren't given any kind of demonstration or time to make them believe in the spiritual energy or not. Nope, the Earth just declared them all unsavable and left them to their fate. Specifically the fate of being left in the human world of technology and industry, which for the record isn't
物質に、金に、権力に強く固執し、戦いと競争、富と貧しさが加速していく世界だ。
All of that is just the dark side of human nature, which doesn't account for the bright side. Honestly, the anime could have been about the two silver-haired brothers setting out to end the dystopian rule and bring about harmony and culture in this sci-fi world. That would have been a really compelling story, but instead we have the Earth itself deciding the fate of 2.6 billion left behind, good or bad, is to be destroyed after these two arrive. Which again, I can't stress this enough. The plot centres around this bloke sending the silver-haired brothers to the bad world in order to save people, but by sending them, causes them all to die. All of which he knows. I guess that brings me on to the characters, most of which are fine. The silver-haired brothers have a confident, shy dynamic, whereas the other brothers are more team-oriented and laid-back, which kind of matches the environment they're brought up in. Speak of which, said dystopian world, while not making any sense narrative-wise, looks nice and does a good job showcasing the advanced technology in grim society without going overboard and making everywhere seem bleak. Essentially, the world showcase demonstrates people actually live in this world, and kinda almost makes me want to not destroy it, funnily enough. The psychic powers in the show are well done. These four have telekinetic powers, these two have mind-reading powers, and this one can alter other people's senses. Gotcha. A nice balance of powers that are powerful but not ridiculous. My complaint about this kid isn't that he's incredibly powerful. After all, overpowered villains can be very exciting. It's that the anime treats him like some misunderstood child who needs help rather than the horrific mass murderer that he is. Even after he slaughtered his way through all of his comrades, one of our heroes jumps to save him without a second thought to his 4 mind-controlled comrades, his teammates around him, or even his own life. On top of that, the kid gets to go to the paradisiacal world afterwards. It's like the anime thinks murder is fine so long as the murderer is underage.
No!
Aside from that incident, the characters are mostly solid, though I'm not sure why these two are suddenly so torturous after being carefree, but fine. It's just a shame that these characters had to go through such a terrible mess of a plot. In the end, it just wore me down. So even when the anime was wrapping up for a final confrontation to save the world, saving only the believers of the spiritual energy, how could I forget? I was left completely disengaged and gave up after 10 episodes. So there we are. If you're writing a story, you can have the deepest of characters and the richest of worlds. But if your plot is a complete inconsistent shambles, then I'm afraid whatever your point you're trying to bring across won't ever land. And with that, the music shall fade out.